Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really fascinating tactical proposal from Aydın Tiryaki, one that could seriously change football as we know it, just by rethinking one simple rule.
All right, to really get this, let's put ourselves right on the touchline, in a high-stakes situation that every single manager absolutely dreads.
So picture this, it's the 80th minute of a massive cup final. Your team is desperately clinging to a one-goal lead. You've just used your very last substitute, bringing on some fresh legs to try and see the game out.
And then it happens. Your keeper goes down, and they can't get up. They're done. With 0 subs left, your star midfielder, or maybe a striker, is frantically pulling on the gloves. In an instant, your tactical masterclass is just hanging by a thread. And you know, the whole integrity of the match feels like it's on the line. Now, this isn't just a case of bad luck. The argument here is that it's actually a structural problem that's literally baked into the rules of the game. It's called the goalkeeper risk, and it creates this quiet paradox that affects almost every decision a manager makes. And that brings us to a really crucial point. While the rulebook says managers have 5 substitutes to work with, the reality on the ground, well, that tells a very different story. So, the current 5-sub rule, right? It came in after the pandemic to help teams handle the insane physical demands of the modern game. The thinking was, more subs means fresher players and a better product for the fans, at least in theory. And this is where you can really see the disconnect between the rule and how it's actually used. Because of that goalkeeper risk we just talked about, most managers, almost instinctively, hold that 5th sub back. It stops being a tactical weapon, and it turns into a safety reserve, basically an insurance policy, just in case the absolute worst happens. But here's a question, has it always been like this? If you take a quick look back at the history of substitutions, you'll see that football actually had a really logical solution for this exact problem once upon a time. This timeline tells such a cool story. I mean, the first sub ever was for an injured keeper. But look at that sweet spot between 1988 and 1995, the 2+1 rule. For a while, the laws of the game actually acknowledged that the goalkeeper is a unique, specialized position that needs its own protection. It's a piece of logic that somehow we just seem to have forgotten along the way. And this, right here, brings us to the very heart of the proposal we're looking at today, a modern, kind of elegant solution called the 5+1 goalkeeper guarantee. The idea is so simple, but it's really powerful. You basically decouple the goalkeeper's safety from the team's outfield tactics. Managers get their 5 subs to influence the game, plus a special, dedicated slot they can only use for their keeper. The whole argument for this model really stands on 3 solid pillars, 3 key benefits that would make the game better for managers, for the players, and honestly, even for us watching. So first up, and this is a big one, tactical liberation. Just imagine a manager being able to throw on all 5 of their outfield subs by the 70th minute to either press an advantage or chase the goal, totally free from that nagging fear that a random keeper injury could blow up their entire plan. The intensity of the game could stay way higher for way longer. The second pillar gives us a fair way to handle red cards. Okay, so under this model, if your keeper gets a red card after you've used your 5 tactical subs, you don't have to stick a defender in goal. No. You can bring on your backup keeper, but, and this is key, you still have to sacrifice an outfield player. So the punishment of being down to 10 men is kept, but the professional integrity of the game stays intact. And finally, there's this fantastic knock-on effect for player development. With a dedicated goalkeeper sub, a manager who's winning, say, 3-0, can give their number 2 keeper 20 minutes of invaluable game time without feeling like they've wasted a precious tactical sub that could have gone to someone else. It's a win-win. So you might be thinking, it's just 1 sub. Why does it matter so much? Well, because this proposal isn't just some minor tweak. It's really about bringing the laws of the game up to speed with the reality of modern football. Let's be honest. Football today is faster, it's stronger, and it's more physically brutal than it has ever been. The rules need to evolve right alongside it, not just to protect the players, but to protect the quality and the tactical beauty of the game itself. And this quote from the article just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly sums up the whole argument. A goalkeeper isn't just another player on the pitch. They are a specialist, trained for a completely unique role. And treating their substitution the same as anyone else's just ignores that basic reality. So where does that leave us? In a sport of billion-dollar decisions and razor-thin margins, isn't it time we embrace this kind of logical step forward? A step that would help ensure that the final result is decided by tactics and by skill, and not by some disastrous stroke of bad luck.
Association football or soccer, it's built on tradition, but right now it feels like the tactical envelope is being pushed further than ever before.
Oh, absolutely.
We're seeing changes driven by just raw speed and physicality, and one of the biggest points of friction seems to be the substitution rule. We have 5 substitutes, but are managers truly using all 5 of them?
That's the core tension we're diving into today. It's a fascinating scenario where a rule that was meant to increase tactical flexibility to help with player workload.
Right.
It's actually creating this, this huge tactical and psychological barrier for managers. They have 5 tools, but they're really only comfortable using 4.
Okay, let's unpack this systemic dilemma. This deep dive is all about a really interesting reform proposal designed to fix this. The 5+1 goalkeeper guarantee model. And this specific plan, for everyone listening, it comes to us from the work of Aydın Tiryaki and the analysis model used by Gemini 3 Pro in 2025.
So our mission for you is to get a really rapid, comprehensive understanding of this. We'll look at the history of how subs even came to be.
Yeah, how they changed the game.
Then dissect this current paradox, and finally, really analyze why experts argue the goalkeeper, the game's most specialized position, needs its own dedicated safety net.
I think the most shocking takeaway for me from the sources was just how one specific piece of potential bad luck can completely dictate a manager's entire strategy late in a game.
It paralyzes them.
It totally negates the benefit of that 5-sub rule.
Yeah.
So let's start at the very beginning. Set the scene for us. How radically did substitutions change football?
Well, for the first 90 years of organized football, there were basically no substitutions allowed.
None at all.
None. The game was fundamentally a test of attrition. If a player got injured, they either had to limp around, completely ineffective, or they left the field.
And their team would just be down a man for the rest of the match.
For the duration, it was brutal.
Wow, that puts into perspective just how foundational that shift was. It really did transform the sport from one of sheer endurance into, one of tactical management.
It was a very, very slow evolution. By the mid-1950s, some leagues started allowing subs just for injuries, acknowledging that, okay, maybe forcing an injured player to stay on is a bad idea.
It's very dangerous.
A bit, yeah. But the real shift came in 1965 with the English Football League.
And here's a fantastic historical nugget from our sources. We often remember big milestones, but the very first substitute ever used in the English Football League, Keith Peacock for Charlton Athletic. He was brought on specifically to replace an injured goalkeeper.
That detail is so telling, isn't it? The very first time a team used a sub, it was for the keeper. It just highlights that even back in 1965, the unique nature of that position was immediately seen as different.
An exception.
Exactly, an exception to the rules.
So fast forward just 5 years, we're at the 1970 Mexico World Cup. And this marks another huge milestone by introducing 2 general substitutions, allowing for tactical changes beyond just injury.
And that was the moment the door really opened to modern tactics. We remember Anatoly Puzak of the Soviet Union, the first tactical sub in World Cup history. The game was evolving from just surviving the 90 minutes to actively managing it.
But I want to zero in on the period that Tiryaki's work calls maybe the most logical period in football history. That's 1988 to 1995. This was defined by the 2+1 rule. Tell us a bit more about why that specific arrangement seemed to work so well.
The 2+1 rule meant managers could make 2 subs for any outfield player, plus they had 1 dedicated slot just for a replacement goalkeeper.
So it was separate.
Completely separate. The logic was brilliant for its time because it acknowledged that the goalkeeper role is not interchangeable. You just can't swap an outfield player for a keeper mid-game without devastating consequences.
So it gave them full security against that specialized risk without forcing managers to burn one of their only 2 tactical changes on a low probability event.
Precisely. It offered absolute certainty in the most volatile position on the pitch. Managers could use their 2 outfield subs completely free of that fear, that little voice in the back of their head.
That a freak injury to the keeper would suddenly force a center back to put on the gloves.
Which is pretty much a guarantee you're going to lose the match.
And yet we moved away from that dedicated protection. By the late 90s, that dedicated keeper sub was just absorbed into the general count, And eventually we landed where we are now.
Right, the current 5-sub rule, which was cemented post-pandemic.
And that shift to 5 was really a response to the extreme intensity of the modern game, as the source puts it.
Oh, it was absolutely necessary. You look at the data, the high-speed pressing, the distances covered, the packed fixture lists. 5 subs are essential now just to manage player safety and fatigue over a full season.
That move was supposed to liberate managers, right? To allow for constant adjustments, fresh legs. But here we are at the central dilemma that still plagues the system.
Yes, the sub-5 paradox. Why 5 is actually 4. In theory, you have 5 substitutions. In reality, managers are so constrained by fear that they effectively only use 4 of them.
And that constraint, as the sources emphasize, is the constant threat of the goalkeeper disaster scenario.
Absolutely. Just, think about a high-stakes match. A manager wants to use their 5th and final sub, maybe bring on an attacker around the 75th or 80th minute to push for a winner, but they hesitate.
Why? They've got the slot, use it.
Because if they use that 5th slot, and then 5 minutes later their starting goalkeeper suffers a serious injury, or worse, gets a red card for handling the ball outside the box.
They have 0 substitutions left.
0. They are forced to put an outfield player, someone who is physically, psychologically, and technically completely unprepared into goal.
And that just compromises the entire professional integrity of the competition.
Yeah.
Suddenly the result isn't decided by tactics or skill, but by an administrative rule and just bad luck.
Correct. So the manager is forced to turn that 5th tactical slot into a purely reactive safety reserve. It just sits there, unused, like an insurance policy against a catastrophe.
And that means the game loses fluidity. Players who should have been subbed off for fatigue stay on the pitch, and late-game tactics are sacrificed for risk avoidance.
Exactly.
But hold on. Couldn't a professional squad just carry enough goalkeepers to mitigate this? They have a big bench. If they bring 2 keepers, isn't that enough security?
That's a fair question, but it kind of misses the point of the rule itself. Even if they have 2 backup keepers on the bench, those keepers still take up 2 of the 5 available tactical substitution slots. So if a manager needs to swap out a tired defender, a struggling midfielder, and wants to bring on fresh wingers, they've quickly used up 4 slots. And that leaves only 1 left, which they then don't dare use if the keeper is still on the field.
I see. So the problem isn't the number of available people. It's the number of actions the rule allows. The current system forces the goalkeeper contingency to compete directly with outfield tactical needs.
That is the perfect summary of the problem. You're trading off specialized safety for attacking impetus or defensive stability. You shouldn't have to make that trade-off in the modern high-demand game.
And that systemic flaw is exactly what this Tiryaki proposal aims to fix. So let's jump straight into it. How do they propose we fix this? The 5 tactical substitutions plus 1 dedicated goalkeeper substitution.
This proposal is really a modern update of that logical 1988 framework. It just formally separates the goalkeeping position from the tactical needs of the outfield players.
So what are the key benefits of this change? We've talked about tactical liberation. What does that actually look like in practice for a manager?
Well, tactical liberation means the manager can finally use all 5 of those outfield slots with 100% efficiency. They can use a high-pressing strategy knowing they can refresh their forward line twice.
Right, without holding back.
They can change their whole formation at the hour mark. And crucially, they can manage player minutes effectively, which directly helps prevent injuries and leads to better performance over a long season.
That makes the 5-sub rule finally deliver on its actual promise. What about the other pillar you mentioned, the one related to the specialist role itself?
That leads to the second key benefit, goalkeeper development and motivation. With a dedicated slot, managers are far more likely to integrate their backup keepers.
How so?
Well, for instance, in a cup game where the result is already secured, they could bring on the reserve keeper for the last 15 minutes. Give them professional exposure without burning a precious outfield slot.
That's a great application. Or think about the recent trend of specialist penalty keepers. If a match is heading to a shootout, a manager could bring on a renowned penalty stopper, confident they haven't compromised their 5 slots for the main part of the game.
Exactly. It promotes better squad management for all 20-plus players rather than forcing the backups for the most specialized role to be perpetually sidelined because it's too expensive to use a tactical slot on them.
Now, this is the part I really wanted to zero in on because it's where the proposal gets really interesting about fairness. The red card contingency. How does the 5+1 model handle the absolute worst-case scenario? The keeper is sent off after all 5 outfield subs have already been used.
This is the nuance that really solidifies the whole proposal. The system has to account for discipline. So if a team has used its 5 tactical subs, and then the goalkeeper is sent off for, say, denying a clear goal-scoring opportunity, the proposal allows them to use that dedicated keeper slot.
But wait, if they bring on the substitute keeper, wouldn't that just nullify the red card penalty? They'd be back to 11 players.
And that is the crucial distinction. They do not gain a player back. They are permitted to bring on the dedicated substitute keeper by sacrificing one outfield player who is already on the pitch.
Ah, I get it. So the disciplinary punishment playing with 10 men is preserved, but the professional integrity of the competition is saved.
Precisely. The outcome is you still have 10 players on the pitch, but one of them is a specialist goalkeeper wearing the gloves. The punishment is still severe, but the game avoids the spectacle of having a center back flailing awkwardly in goal.
Which just diminishes the quality of the entire match for everyone.
Completely.
That feels like a genuinely elegant solution. It balances the letter of the law discipline must be penalized with the spirit of the game, which requires technical competence.
It ensures that necessary disciplinary decisions don't create an unnecessary technical disaster. Tiryaki argues this scenario, while rare, ruins the match. The outcome is just disproportionate to the foul committed.
So as we wrap this up, let's talk about the so what of all this. You mentioned that IFAB must evolve. For the listener, who is IFAB, and why is this their problem to solve?
IFAB is the International Football Association Board. They are the guardians of the laws of the game. They're the ones who vote on and implement rule changes. And this proposal is aimed right at them because the rationale is purely about protecting the technical quality of the game in 2025.
And the logic here is really about maximizing efficiency and just removing these unfair, low-probability variables, right?
Absolutely. The 5+1 model is designed to eliminate that anxiety of bad luck with goalkeeper incidents. By providing this procedural safety net, managers are empowered to manage the game with what Tiryaki calls 100% tactical efficiency.
It brings us right back to the central argument.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper is just fundamentally different. Their role is so isolated and so specialized that their procedural safety can't be treated as interchangeable with the other players.
And if you look back at history, that recognition was there in 1965 with the very first sub, and it was formalized logically in the 1988 rules. Now, with the extreme demands of the 5-sub era, that dedicated safety net is more critical than ever before.
We've covered the history, the paradox of the safety reserve that plagues big matches, and that very clever, discipline-aware solution for red cards. It's clear this is all about making sure skill and strategy are the ultimate deciders.
And that leads us to the final thought we want to leave you with, something for you to mull over. If the tactical element of the game is fully liberated from the bad luck of attrition, specifically for this one specialized role, does this inevitably guarantee a higher technical quality in every single match? Or does removing that element of catastrophic chance actually eliminate an essential, high-stakes strategic challenge that traditional football managers have always been forced to navigate?
It's a debate about whether professional sports should prioritize maximizing visible skill or maximizing a manager's ability to survive pure chance and adversity. Thank you for providing us with the material for this deep dive into the 5+1 goalkeeper guarantee model.
Thank you for listening.